This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
So seems to be the summer of sports this year. There's lots going on. Are you watching the World Cup at all?
Every single bit of it.
Yeah.
Every single bit of it.
We love it. I know there are a lot of people that could care less, but at my house, Kyle and I love it. We've been obsessed.
We've gotten really into it, and I know no players' names. No, that's not true. I know Messi. I know Ronaldo.
Mbappe. Mbappe's just fun to say.
Mbappe. Yep. So those are good ones, and I think my kids know something like Yeymar or something like that. I don't know. But these are the best of the best in the whole world, which is great.
Yep.
And then you also get to realize, even though they play in like the English Premier League or the Bundesliga or whatever it is, when they're with their team, it's like, oh, I don't think I realized that Messi was Argentinian.
Right.
Who knew? Ronaldo, for some reason, I always thought he was a Spaniard. No, he's Portugal.
Because he played
for
Madrid forever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I find that interesting.
Hopefully you are enjoying the festiveness that is the World Cup here on a local level. The festivities that continue on in New York over the Knickerbockers.
I saw something. It was on Fox News. It came through, and they had a video of this person taking one of those Knicks painted trash cans, dumping all the trash out, and stealing that custom Knicks trash can
out of the stadium, out of Madison Square Garden
in the Bronx. I was like, that is awesome, true New York style. It's like, hey, they put these great freaking trash cans out here. It's got the Knicks insignia on it. I'm gonna take that thing. It's going back to the Bronx in my pocket, 14B right now.
So New York, a 53-year drought. And
53 years.
The Knicks, they're back again on top. NBA champs. They weren't the only ones that were celebrating along the way. Fans went along for the ride, but they did it at a cost, John. Ooh. NBC News asked some Knicks fans what they paid for tickets. And here's some truths that came out anonymously, but still.
$20,000. My best friend found me an amazing seat that is close to courtside, so I'm really excited.
$3,500. I have a season ticket holder for 23 years. My tickets are selling online for about $20,000 tonight, and my Wednesday tickets are selling for $25,000, but I don't care. We were about to buy some tickets.
Unfortunately, they're a little bit out of our price range. We tried to buy some, and we added 3 to our cart, and then...
came out to about $25,000, so we won't be attending today.
So what I was hearing there is about $10,000 a seat. Between $10,000 and $20,000 a seat is what people were paying.
Yeah. That is a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that was the New York Knicks. So you got New York prices and things like that.
Sure.
Every year I'm amazed in Kentucky, amazed at what Kentucky Derby tickets go for, especially if you want to be in a good area, undercover.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to be in Millionaires Row, nothing like that. But if you just want to be a box undercover, because, it rains a lot, you will spend thousands and thousands of dollars for a day to fight traffic to and from and $25 drinks and everything else.
Yeah.
But people are into it. I mean, I love that experience. It's a lot. But, that interesting thing is too much ever too much?
Okay.
I don't know.
This is what I wanted to ask you about, because the Derby, it comes around every year. So I kind of get, like, the Knicks thing, it's been over 50 years. I would never spend $20,000 on a ticket. Do not call this radio station judging me. But I kind of get it. I kind of get it. And I think about folks that you work with, people that have worked so hard. They're finally retired. They've got bucket list things they want to do. They've got a boat they want to buy. They've got a lake house they perhaps want to build. Or, I don't know, a $20,000 vacation they want. I mean, you're going to sit there and turn your nose up at spending $20,000 on a game, but people will go and spend that on a trip that only lasts a week or two. And should they not have those things that they want?
I think one of the greatest things about a well-designed retirement plan is the fact that it gives you permission to spend freely within a range.
Not just to spend, but to splurge as well at times.
And that's good. And that's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
We want it to feel like it's a splurge, like it is a wicked indulgence from time to time. That doesn't mean go blow the money, but let me give you an example. So I'm going to call this couple, I'm going to call them the Delgados, because they've been clients for a really long time. Wonderful people. They had saved so unbelievably well. And the whole thing is that, they weren't really penny pinchers. They just didn't believe in frivolities. They just didn't believe that, if they wanted to go see the Derby, if they wanted to do that, they would never go and get the good seats, the good tickets. There is nothing in the world wrong with that. That's how I grew up. But that was just because we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
When we went on the road, it was the Days Inn, the Red Roof.
Yep.
I mean, whatever place that looked like you weren't going to,
if it was
have
clean,
your car.
Right. Clean.
Yeah.
That's all you
would
needed.
probably have all 4 hubcaps when you came out of the motel, the next morning. That's a starting point. It really is. But the Delgados, I remember them saying, it's like, listen, John, you asked us, because I asked the same question of everyone when they come in. If you had an extra 20 to 30 grand a year of income, and it would not change you being able to retire one bit, would you spend it? And Mr. Delgado looks at me and is like, well, no, John, I don't think we would. And he looked over, and his wife looked up at me, and she said, how much now? I'm like, well, 20 to 30,000 just cursorily looking at things. You could easily spend $20 to $30,000 more than you're telling me. And that wouldn't even put a dent in what you could still give the kids in the long run. And then they looked at each other again and I'm like, whoa. You're meaning to tell me that you can potentially create a plan and we could really spend $20 or $30,000 or more anytime we wanted, any given year. Yeah. What if we didn't spend it? Well, then it just stays in the accounts and it continues to grow just like it would have been. Well, what if we want to take it every year? Well, you can. That was the whole idea. The trade-off is there just wouldn't be millions and millions and millions more dollars waiting for your kids when you're gone. As a matter of fact, even if you took that $20,000 or $30,000 out annually and gave it to the kids annually, they'd be just as good off. And then you get to see the joy of that gift. You get to see the faces when you help a 16-year-old, maybe not pay for the whole car, but give them the down payment, right? Teach them responsibility. Here's the $5,000 down payment, and or someone that's been working real hard, you do need a new set of tires. It's $1,000. You get permission, right? So what we typically build into every plan are what we call guardrails, right? So we basically want our spending floor. We want the bottom line. And in that number, we know without any fear in the world of the market's weirdness or interest rates weirdness or tax changes, we don't have to worry about it. We know that floor is going to come in no matter what. Then we have the top guardrail. Now, this is kind of that idea where any given year, and in this example of the Delgados, we talked about $20,000 to $30,000. And I was like, so we just established it at $30,000 as the top guardrail. Amazingly enough, it took about 2 years for them to actually use it. In that second year, though, Heather, in that second year, they said, we just had some friends that came back from Tuscany. And they said it was magical. They knew about Tuscany because they had actually done a Viking river cruise and they had gone not to that area, to a different area, and they liked the river cruise. They just didn't like the idea of not being able to venture out and stay in those towns a little longer.
Right.
But so they didn't tell us that much about the cruise when they did it. So we just thought, oh, it was just very expensive. Maybe we wouldn't like it. But when they talked about Tuscany, and spending 2 full weeks and seeing how the food really was and the wines only from that area, they're not even expensive. They're like the table wines, but they were so delicious. They talked about these things and we started thinking, could we do it? So amazingly enough, they called in and I helped them out because I love traveling myself and I had an idea and some gauges of who they should talk to and kind of costs. So we started working through that. Now, guys, this is my point. We had a guardrail of $30,000 a year. They hadn't taken anything the year prior. Okay. So I was able to show them, so if we're not going to do this all the time, this is truly a splurge. Yeah. We could do really more like 45 to 50 grand as long as we would understand that we just don't want to get used to this too much, or then we would start dipping into, principal or things for the grandkids. And they were just like, are you serious? Long story short, because we had guardrails, they didn't look at that as an inconvenience. They didn't look at like they had to spend it. What they realized was, now I see why you did it. We know we're going to be safe and comfortable. We can sleep every single night like babies, knowing our income is going to be there for those things. But every year we could potentially spend more. And if we don't, then it kind of accumulates and you can take a little bit more and a little bit more if you chose to for each year you wait. When they saw that, it was the first time that they said they had permission to spend the money they had worked their entire lifetime to be certain that they had. And it gave them unbelievable freedom. in their minds. So after that trip, they were talking about how wonderful it was and they wanted to go back. But then they actually wanted to spend more time. They wanted to see Portofino because the people that they met in Tuscany was like, oh, Portofino is so different. It's all boats and water. And that's like the north side.
Okay.
And then they talked about Sorrento. And the next time they really wanted to consider Sorrento, which is the bottom of the boot near Capri and all these areas. And they were so excited. And here's the thing, Heather, had they not understood the guardrails, had they not understood what their plan afforded them, gave them permission to do, they would have never done the first one. But now they're actually enjoying all the things that they worked and struggled so hard to save for.
I love it.
Now they're actually seeing the fruits of their labor. And to me, that's the most exciting part about what I do. It's a lot less about the finances part. And, it's always nice when someone says, hold on, John, we're going to save like $200,000 over the course of retirement and taxes. No one talked to us about that before. That's good. But when I get to see and talk to people after they just actually stayed at the Ritz-Carlton the very first time, and these are people that weren't multimillionaires.
Yeah.
These are people that worked hard for everything they have, but we gave them permission. Yeah, you can stay at the Holiday Inn Express. It's perfectly fine. You can stay at the Courtyard Marriott. I'd stay at those myself. So those are great.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, when we do it right, let's look at the Four Seasons. Let's look at the Ritz-Carlton. Is it in a better area? Would it be closer to the things you want to do? Is that concierge going to know more about the restaurants than we know, right? Because sometimes it's not really an expense. It's an investment. It's an investment in that opportunity to truly live it in a way that we don't often get to. As long as we understand, again, it's not an everyday thing, but those splurges, just like $20,000 to watch your favorite team in the finals and they haven't been there in 50 years, done correctly, it could be one of the greatest things we ever do. So give yourself permission by getting the right plan. If you start there today, you're going to be like every great Knicks fan out there. You're just going to be happy, at least until next season starts.
Permission to spend.
That's right.
He said it, not me. Permission to spend and to splurge in a way that you deserve because you've made it this far. You've done the hard work. You have earned. You have saved. You have sacrificed over the years. Now getting to, as John was pointing out, see the fruits of that labor and doing what you want to do in retirement. That's what he and his team are here to help you figure out in a plan that's customized to your goals. Let's start that conversation. The number to dial is 502-317-0840. 502-317-0840. Give us a call right now to set a time on the calendar. Start the conversation with one of our advisors at J. Hagan Capital, a local independent financial and retirement planning firm. At J. Hagan Capital, John and his team, they've been helping folks all around Louisville figure out retirement. They've been doing it for decades. They are here for you as well. So if you're ready to start that conversation, let's do it. Give us a call, 502-317-0840. You can also go to our website, retirementsolutionradio.com. Just click on the button that says Find Your Retirement Solution and begin that way as well. Or it's 502-317-0840. Coming up in the next half hour, the conversation around taxes, it continues on. There was this article that I saw online, headline reading, millions of Americans, they've saved for decades, only to trip up over their tax bills right before retirement.
Oh,
we're going to unpack that a little bit because it is a tragedy we do not want to face. Also, the one more year syndrome is a very real issue for many hardworking Americans. So you got to talk us out of that, sir. But first, shall we discuss all of the things that are going on? Well, right now specifically, it's been a couple weeks since the SpaceX IPO. Welcome to the world of trillionaires. We have officially made it with Elon Musk.
I mean, when you really look at how much money a billion is and think that a trillion is 1,000 billion.
Yep.
A trillion seconds ago was 30,000 BC.
Nuh-uh.
It literally. I used to talk about this in presentations when I used to teach at university campus. And I was like, I want to explain how big a trillion is because we would talk about national debt. But a trillion seconds ago, no joke, was 32,000 years ago. It would have been 30,000 BC. So if you had $1 for every second, it'd be 32,000 years ago. That's how big that number is.
That's a big number.
Isn't that mind-numbing?
It's unfathomable, I think, for most of us to imagine.
I don't know if banks can afford to pay him an interest rate on that bank account.
When you're at that level, aren't you your own bank at that point?
I mean, if a rounding error on your pennies might amount to a couple $1 million, you've done okay.
I think he's going to make it, John. I think Elon Musk is going to make it.
We can only hope. We can only hope.
Another billionaire. I mean, he's only a billionaire, but we'll drop it down to that level. to continue this conversation around tech stocks. Billionaire investor Ray Dalio, he's actually sounding the alarm on stocks. And he was telling Bloomberg News that the market is approaching levels seen before two of the worst crashes in history. And those are the crashes of 1929 and the dot-com bust of the year 2000. This is what Ray Dalio said.
All great technology changes produce bubbles. And the reason they produce bubbles is because nobody can get it exactly right. And then when people bet on the technology, they think that buying the stocks is betting on the technologies, which is a different thing, because the stocks can be expensive. That's a problem.
Is it a bubble that bursts eventually?
I think it is, yes.
So that's Ray Dalio. I know somebody that you follow closely, John, talking about this AI bubble that we seem to be in with the markets. And if we are in that environment, then what kind of adjustments do investors, especially those you work with, those are at or near retirement, what do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, let's think about this. Let's unpack this a little bit. So number one, Ray Dalio, not only is a billionaire, is considered one of the most forward-thinking macro economists of our time period. And not just because he's got money, he has done a masterful job over his last 30 or 40 years, seeing trends in markets and making money by just looking at the trends. So when he says, hey, let's pump the brakes for a second, guys. It doesn't mean that there's going to be a fall apart, crash, but he's saying we're seeing warning signs out there in the economy that have only happened two other times. Of course, the 1929 start of the Great Depression when the stock market collapsed. And the only other time in history was in 2000, after we had all that huge run up from the Reagan tax cuts and the Clinton administration making the market shoot to the roof. And we had all those high big tech names. And then what happened in 2000, it all crumbled down. We had 3 years of carnage where the markets lost 78% for technology back in the day. And what Dalio was saying is, hey, that doesn't mean everything's going to fall tomorrow, but let's pump the brakes because we are really expensive. Okay. So when someone says this, and this is probably the good and the bad thing about having all 24-hour news channels 7 days a week all the time, is that we hear these things and sometimes we're just like, yeah. I've heard 800,000 things just like that, doom and gloom, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. But this is interesting. And not just because the source, not just because it's Dalio, because I did pull up the chart after I saw this. And he is very accurate. The warning signals that are going out, it is not saying that things are going to free fall. But he is saying that this is probably an understanding this is a bubble, right? So here's the key. If you're in your 30s or 40s, then a bubble probably is going to create buying opportunities. It's going to create things out there that will be good buying opportunities. If you look at most of the big companies that are still around today, Coca-Cola, General Electric, a lot of these companies were founded and started during recessions. They were founded and started during depressionary periods. It's so strange because they learned how to be lean in the very beginning. But what they did is they took over a lot of business accounts and a lot of business contracts of other failed companies who couldn't actually do those things. So when you look at the Chinese symbol for crisis, it is literally the exact same symbol for opportunity. So again, if you're in your 30s and early 40s, then a bubble could create opportunities for you to do very well in the long run. Now, let me change that a little bit, though. If we're 3 to 5 years before retirement, or we're going to think about walking out the door and punching that time clock the last time this year, or we just did that last year and we need our portfolio to produce income for us to live off of, a bubble is very different. And this is where I'm going to take a moment. We're going to talk together here for just a second. Bubbles can be unbelievably paralyzing for many people because all of a sudden when the bad headlines start coming out, it's like they never stop. As a matter of fact, if you look at what happened in February and March of this year, the president started having some rhetoric about changing a whole bunch of stuff. And next thing you know, we're in a war with Iran. Israel started it, and then we joined them. And then all of a sudden, we're still dealing with the aftermath of that. The market over the course of 3 days lost nearly 10% in 3 days. Now, here's the thing. If we had time or if we had the right plan and we weren't worried about it, what happened over the next 18 days after the market lost 10%? It got it all back. It got it all back. But there's a lot of people that lost a lot of money because they made poor decisions because of all those headlines. Right. So what I want to take this opportunity to say, Ray Dalio saying there's a bubble, that's number one, factual, and it's accurate. Number two, it's happened only 2 times in the history of the United States. That's something to think about because here we are again, and both of those other 2 times led to prolonged downturns, right? If we lost too much money during 1929, it never came back. We lost it all, or we couldn't afford to live and we had to go do something else. In 2000, it took all the way until 2017 for the NASDAQ to get back to where it was. That's 17 years, guys. So if we're thinking about, wow, I've got 20% of my portfolio in technology, things like good companies too. I love them, but like Microsoft, Apple, Google, NVIDIA, maybe SpaceX, whatever it is, all those companies, as good as they are, it took them 17 years to get back last time, right? And it may not all be the same companies now. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. 17 years. We may not have that time. So when we're thinking about those types of things, this is a really good time to understand three big things. Number one, how much risk do you have? And can you afford to take that much risk? Because the market's still pretty dang high. Is it a good time to maybe think about repositioning those assets to lock in some of those gains and maybe find some tax incentives to do exactly that? That's number one. Number two, there is a huge difference between betting on a technology that we think is going to be there in the long run and actually buying a good company at a good price. Okay. And that was something that Dalio said. Technology is very different. People, when they think that they're buying these things, they're buying this AI, if you were overpaying, it's not a good deal. It's kind of like, wow, I really love Toyota Land Cruisers. I think they're great. And you go out there and you know it's going to be a good car, but it's going for 3 times what it used to go for. Is that a good time to buy that Toyota vehicle? Probably not. And that might be what we're saying. Even though it's a good company, you can still lose money if we get in at the wrong price. So that's something to understand. In allocation, the biggest thing, where are the buckets in your portfolio? Do you have this is going to be my calm income bucket. This is going to be the one that no matter what is going to generate my income that I'm going to spend next year. And then the following year is going to generate the money that I spend the following year. And then the next year is going to generate the income for the following year, right? So that's just having an income factory in our portfolio. We do that for all of our clients. They have a bucket that does only that. And then we have our opportunity bucket. Those may be the ones that now you may want to think, do you put some safety nets in there? Do you put some hedges? Do you put some protections? Do you put some stop losses? What do you choose to do? If you don't have those in your portfolio, it may be a good time just to get a second opinion. Find out what you may be missing. Because I love it when the markets go up. Everyone in our office does. When the markets go down, though, I also love the fact that we don't get a lot of calls. Right. We get calls from people that we've met with that may have not decided to work with us yet. But most of our clients, they're actually not calling in because they know what we did. We built a 3-bucket plan. We know where their money's going to come from right now. We know what's going to happen over the next several years for their income. And we know what we have the opportunity to take risk with or take opportunities with when they come around. But they're all 3 very different buckets that often have 3 very different assets in them. And that's what we want to make sure we get right. So if Dalio is correct and we're in a bubble, if you're young, guys, be ready for an opportunity. If we're thinking about retirement or we're recently retired or we've been retired for a while, just pump the brakes and take a look. What do you have under your hood? Can it get us through the situation so that we can make the right decisions when it all unfolds?
Let's get to work helping you find out with a full review of your savings and investments. Give us a call. The number to dial right now, 502-317-0840, 502-317-0840. We've opened up 5 spots on the calendar for radio listeners today. Call right now. Reserve a time to start the conversation about a full review of your savings and investments. This is a no-fee, no-obligation review. If you are near or in retirement, if you've saved at least $500,000, want to offer this review to you complimentary. 502-317-0840 to set a time on the calendar. Start the conversation about a risk review of your savings and investments. As you get closer to retirement, want to make sure that you're not missing any holes in your plan. John and his team, they want to do that for you as well. You can also go to the website. It's retirementsolutionradio.com or call us at 502-317-0840. Millions of Americans spend decades saving for retirement only to trip up over taxes right at the finish line, John.
Oh, that stinks. And it's so true. It's like watching all these FIFA games, and these guys are getting ready to go to the goal line. It's amazing. They're juggling the ball and doing things I've never seen, weaving through with just absolute magistry. And then they're at the very end. They trip and they fall and they scoot their face on that grass.
Those guys have got 3 defenders coming at them full speed. So it's a little bit more understandable in that situation.
It's unbelievable. But that's what it makes me think like. It's like, oh my gosh, we've done all this work. We've killed it. We've gotten all the way down here. And then boom, something blindsides you. and we get wrecked.
Yep.
Kind of like taxes when we're in retirement, dependingly on where we saved our money.
Yeah.
Heather, can you believe it? It is not about the assets. It's about the location of those assets that makes all the difference in how we're taxed. We can talk about that today.
It seems so simple, but for many people, let's go back a little bit. There was this headline on this article online that I read that I wanted to ask you about, and it said just that. This is the headline. Millions of Americans spend decades saving for retirement only to trip over tax bills at the finish line. So this article goes on to talk about we need to have more than one type of account in our overall retirement savings account and or portfolio. So it says that we need a pre-tax account, an after-tax / tax-free, so I guess it's an and/or account,
sure,
and a taxable account. Let's talk about what these three accounts are, what they mean in somebody's portfolio. Also, do you think that most of us need all three, and how big of a piece of the pie should each have?
Absolutely. Great question. So everyone's different, right? So this is the one interesting thing about most tax designs or the things that we do in our office. Every human being is going to be different. Your age, your health, how long your parents lived, what year you want to retire. Is it a good year or bad year for the markets? Is it a good year or bad year for some of your portfolio holdings? Everything about an individual person can completely change what they need to do for their tax design, right? So, but for everyone, for every human being out there, I have yet to find one that doesn't need to have a proper amount of money in all three buckets.
Okay.
So we basically have our taxable account. So that's kind of like having CDs at the bank that's not in our IRAs, right? Or our stocks that we were given by our grandparents or our parents, things like that. Those are basically taxable accounts. Every year, we settle up essentially with the IRS, take care of that tax obligation, and then we go about our own thing. If we don't sell those stocks or those assets, often there's not a huge tax bill, although sometimes there can be on interest earned and dividends paid and things like that. So that's taxable. Our tax deferred bucket, and this is where most Americans, we were taught, we were trained, we were sold on the idea of put that money in that tax deferred bucket and give the government an IOU. It's like, hey, let me put this money in here. I'm not going to pay any taxes before it goes in. Let's let it grow. But I have an IOU out there. And when I pull that money out, the portion that I pull out, then I'm going to have to pay the government. That's when I pay my taxes. That's a tax deferred account. So our IRAs and 401ks, that's predominantly where most of us have saved so much money. That's not a bad thing up until the time we start pulling it out. It's actually pretty great. But often we forget about that tax bill. We're going to get back to that in a minute.
Okay.
And then the third bucket, the third one is the Roth bucket or the tax-free bucket. These are dollars that we've already paid taxes on. And so we don't have to pay taxes again if we follow the rules, which means we put those dollars in that bucket. We let it grow and grow and grow and grow, hopefully over a long period of time, or it can even grow and grow and grow and grow until it goes to our grandkids. But the point is that we will potentially never pay taxes again on any of that growth, which is awesome. So what we want to do as good, hardworking, hard-saving Americans, we want to exploit those rules the best way we can by using the laws in our favor. So for most of us, there is truly a mathematical formula. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like it's deep space or something like that, some science fiction. But no, there is literally a mathematical formula for most of us based on our age, how much money we want to spend, and where we pull those dollars from to figure out how much money we should have in each bucket between tax-free, tax-deferred, and taxable. Believe it or not, there is. So for most of our clients, it's basically we ask them the question, hey, if we could generate an extra $20,000 or $30,000 of more income from your exact same portfolio, would you spend it? Now, here's the amazing thing. Everyone says something different. Some people say, well, could I potentially run out of money if I have that? No, absolutely not. It's just we're going to be spending some more money instead of saving some more money. Some people say, oh my gosh, John, that would change everything. I could do that Viking River cruise we talked about. I could rescreen the back porch just like we have talked about for the last 15 years. I absolutely would use that money. Well, if we're going to use that money, believe it or not, it changes our tax strategy. Now, there are others, Heather, on the other side that say, you know, John, if you gave me an extra 20 grand, I don't think we'd save it. I mean, we actually did the Viking River cruise and we paid off everything, and we wouldn't mind giving some more money to our kids or grandkids. And just like you've said all the time, you know, do your giving while you're living.
Yep.
But honestly, I don't think we'd spend it. So that means they're going to be a net saver. Now, they have a lot more that we can do when it comes to tax strategies. How do we get the right dollars in the right buckets so that they pay not only the least amount of taxes over the course of their working lives, then over the course of their retired lives, here's the big one. Can we potentially get it at a lower tax rate for their beneficiaries? 3-generational potential wealth transfer. That is where it gets exciting and challenging. But we don't lead there first, because the main thing is, if someone would rather say, John, I love my kids. I love my grandkids. I think they're great. But I educated them. I took care of them. I fed them. I nourished them. I gave them all the things that I could give. And I've kind of done that. This money is for me and mama. This is for us. We want to use this for us. We may never want to do yard work ever again. Mm-hmm. Or we may want to put up a pole barn and only work on restoring old Oldsmobiles. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. But when they say, I want that last check to bounce to the undertaker, I just smile, because that is truly just a different thought process. It's what they choose to do. And I love it, because we can create those strategies. Okay. They take completely different tax strategies, right? So the reason I'm talking about all this is because many people have never been shared that information. Okay. Even if you got a great CPA, he probably does not do what our CPAs in-house do, because our CPAs do not file tax returns. That's not what they do even remotely. What they're looking for is how to strategize and use the tax code as it changes to keep the most money over the course of retirement in our clients' accounts, in their pockets, and to go to their kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, into a dynasty trust, whatever it is they want. They don't care about the tax code for that minute. They care about what it's going to do over the next 20, 30, 40 years of their lives or their kids' lives. That is what our guys do. So amazingly enough, because people are not aware, I see what you're saying, John. Instead of saving $1,000 in taxes this year by taking this deduction, if I maneuver some money around, we call it asset shifting. If we shift assets correctly, we may save, instead of saving $1,000 this year, we may save $30,000 over the course of our lifetime in retirement. Which would you rather have? Now, some people say, well, John, I'd rather have the $1,000 now. No problem. We can do that. But the majority of people say, are you serious? If I just maneuver this stuff around, I can maybe save $30,000 on my tax bill in the long run, and my kids may not have to pay any taxes depending on their situation. Yeah. Well, why wouldn't I do that? It's up to you. What do you want us to solve for, right? Everything in our firm, everything about what we do. I mean, this show is called The Retirement Solution. We want to solve it with you. Right? Not for you, with you. You tell us what all of the variables are, and we want to find out mathematically and based on laws, how can we get that right specifically for you? And by the way, this does not mean we're creating the perfect plan. There is no such thing. We literally just want to create a plan that you can stick with, that you understand, and that not only works today, but as it evolves and as life changes and throws us curveballs, it's flexible enough to change with us. That's what it's about. So when it comes to taxes, everyone needs to understand is just because you have a great CPA, you may have a great CPA and a great financial guy and a really good insurance guy. But if they don't talk to each other, then not a single one of them know how to fix your problems. And if they don't tell you that you have a problem, then you'll never know. So that's why second opinions are so great, in my opinion, especially if you've never had a written tax design done in your portfolio. Because the largest bill that we're going to have in retirement, believe it or not, isn't shelter. It isn't food. It's not even beef prices or gasoline prices right now. Even at these crazy levels, those aren't the big ones. It's probably going to be taxes. Probably. So if there's one thing that we can plan for over a 20, 25, 30, 35-year retirement, let's see if we can knock off a good portion of one of the biggest bills we're going to have and fix that tax problem. If we do that well, chances are we're going to have a lot more money in our pockets to do the things we want to do, to give the money we want to give, to live the life that we want to live.
If you have questions about how to save more in taxes in retirement, reach out to us, 502-317-0840. Call right now to start the conversation with John and his team about a tax plan for your retirement. 502-317-0840. We're also online at retirementsolutionradio.com. To your point about people that perhaps have a great CPA, have a great person that's helped them to build their wealth through market investments, those kinds of things. Or they're just a really smart DIY investor. They've done a lot of great things themselves in their working years. Yeah. It very often requires a different set of eyes for our retirement.
You know, it is really different because there's a lot of people, they're smart. They get their MBAs. Yeah. They did a great job making all the money. But making the money is kind of like climbing up the mountain. Mm-hmm. when you climb up the mountain, it literally requires a slightly different type of guide when you're going up as opposed to when you come down the mountain. And I know this because I have a lot of friends and they actually do this, what they call Everesting, where they climb mountains to the point where like it's getting up to the top of Mount Everest. So even though they may not be going up that huge mountain, they may be going up a mountain like 18 or 25 times to equate to that. It requires a different Sherpa, if you will, or a different guide on going up the mountain than going down. Why is that? Because on your way up, most of the time we have energy, we have the ability, we have stamina. Where we put our feet is very different. How we harness and anchor ourselves to maintain safety is very different. Now, when we get to the top and we're on our way down, guys, it changes. All of a sudden, we're exhausted. We're tired. We may be a little beaten up from that trek up, and on our way down, it requires a lot more safety precautions. And believe it or not, where do most of the deaths happen on a mountain? On the way down. And so no different on climbing a mountain versus climbing a portfolio or climbing the retirement mountain, if you will. On our way down, it often requires a different set of eyes, a different strategy, or a different guide to do that. So even if you've done an awesome job, maybe you got into SpaceX when it was private. Maybe you invested in Apple the day that it was on the market. Maybe you did all these wonderful things. Awesome. You created a fortune. The question is, how do we hold on to it? How do we keep it? How do we keep it out of Uncle Sam's hands? And then how do we keep it for our children and grandchildren to use? Slightly, if not completely different strategies. So even if you've got good stuff, if you're on your way down the mountain, maybe you could get a second set of eyes just to make certain that we don't have any missteps.
At J. Hagan Capital, Jon and his team, they are here to be that second set of eyes for you. Reach out to us. 502-317-0840 is the number to dial right now. 502-317-0840. Call to set a time. Start the conversation with Jon and his team about a full review of your savings and investments, working to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket in retirement, making sure that you don't have any areas you might have missed in that plan. 502-317-0840. If you're over 59 and have saved at least $500,000, that's where you're really going to see the power of this kind of planning take effect. At J. Hagan Capital, they want to show you what your options are. We're also online, retirementsolutionradio.com, or it's 502-317-0840. Just one more year. How many years in a row have you said that to yourself? Is the
That's
question.
what the Knicks did for a really long time, Heather. A really long time. Just one more year. One more year. Well, good for them.
The Knicks are a professional basketball organization. They will hopefully be here for many, many more years. But when you are thinking to yourself, when can you actually retire? And then every year you say just one more year of work. Who are you really robbing yourself of? Or who is being robbed really in that moment? Because for so many people, you're robbing yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about, this one more year syndrome. Many people suffer from it. And pre-retirees will tell themselves over and over again, I'm just going to work one more year. And then the next year they say it again. And then the next year they say it again. Or perhaps you're married to somebody who keeps saying this to themselves and to you. So, and there are many reasons that we do it. Job security. Some people want to beef up that Social Security check, Jon, if they push that back. I know that Medicare is a big deal if you're not quite 65. I'm just going to work to 65 because that's a big area of financial burden. If you're not 65, you have to cover your medical costs. But when thinking about how these things will actually deliver for you in retirement, that's where you come in, Jon, to help us do the math, understanding what the benefits, if there are any, of one more year really are for somebody. If you see somebody stuck in this mindset, they're saying one more year, how do you help them figure it out and make the leap if they can?
Well, it's interesting. A minute ago, you said you may be married to someone that always says, just one more year. Yeah. Well, my mother was married to one of those people. Yeah. My dad, literally every single month, he's like, just one more month or one more quarter, one more year. He did it forever. And unfortunately, he had a stroke before he actually pulled the trigger to decide to retire. Now, what that did, it robbed my mother of having a better retirement, right? So there's trade-offs to anything. But the biggest thing to understand is there's no right or wrong answer on when someone should retire. So the fear is real. So, and I validate those fears with people when they say, Jon, I don't know. I just don't know if I'm ready to do it. If it's true fear, then what we can do is go through the math and find out, does the math work first? Because what I have found, Heather, when someone comes in or they talk to us, they've heard me on the show for over a decade, or they've seen us on television for over a decade, what they say is, you sound in real life kind of like you do in your radio show. I'm like, well, how do you mean by that? It's like, well, you just kind of shoot it the way it is. I was like, well, that's good.
Yeah.
I was like, so let's do that. What's keeping you working? And here's what a lot of gentlemen say, right? And the ladies, not as much, but the guys typically say, well, I make more money than I've ever made, doing what I do. I got a kind of an easy job. I've done it for 39 years, 29, whatever their number is. And here's what they're really getting to. I don't really know what I would do with 40 extra hours a week if I didn't go to work. Yeah. That's kind of what they're saying. Which to me, guys, that is probably the biggest thing that should stop anyone or at least make them cautionary on if they should retire or not. It's not what we're retiring from, because believe me, if you're making more money you've ever made before, they still cover your health care. You get benefits. You got a boss that you can either tolerate, or maybe you're the boss now and life works okay. Why would you give that up if you did not have something better or more interesting or more challenging to step into? So it's not about what we're retiring from. It's what we're retiring to. Now, having said that, here's where I'm going to get into what I have found over the last 25 years of me doing this. When you run the actual numbers, it almost never pays people out what they think they're going to get by waiting one more year. I don't know why, but it just has, they're thinking, well, I make $150,000 a year. I make $100,000 a year, and in their mind, they're putting that $100,000 in that bucket, but they're not changing it else. Here's the thing. If you work that whole year, chances are you're just putting in what you put into your 401k that previous year. What was that? 10 grand, 15 grand, 18 grand. And maybe you saved a few more dollars in your savings account. Most people don't. So by working a whole year, you may have only saved an extra 20 or 30 grand. Now, does that hurt? Of course not. But if you're in your 60s, that new savings doesn't really have time to compound. So when I put that in people's perspective, like, oh, now I see what you're saying. I was like, right. Now, what does help by delaying is delaying Social Security a little bit, right? No, that actually does help, but only up to age 70.
Right.
So at age 70, it doesn't add up anymore. Like between 68 and 70 or 66 and 70, it grows by roughly 8% a year. Now, that's money they can't take away from you. That's number one. Number two, it's money that your surviving spouse gets to get later. So if you're married and you have a spouse that's younger or in much better health or things like that, is something you want to consider for waiting, but only to age 70. Now, here's the secondary part. What you're trading by waiting a year is probably the biggest thing to me, because it's the most valuable resource every single one of us has. We're trading that work for, we're giving up time. Okay. And when it comes down to when we're in our 60s and early 70s, we're trading it for something we can't get back, which is healthy retirement. I think a lot of people, if we gave up the last year of retirement in our late 80s or early 90s, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Maybe. And I'm just saying that only because I've talked to thousands and thousands of people about this, because that's when the knees don't work as well.
Right.
The hips don't work as well. Hopefully we're still mobile, but at that point in time, we wouldn't have a problem getting rid of that. But by trading off and working more years, the youngest and the healthiest that we're going to be, that's kind of what we're giving up. And so if that is one of the things that would give someone a leap of confidence, as long as the math works, to retire early, I think they should consider it, Heather. Okay. Realistically, okay. I think they should.
Does the math work for you? Let's find out. Give us a call. 502-317-0840 is our number. You can call right now to set a time on the calendar. Start the conversation about doing the math on your savings with John and his team at J. Hayden Capital. 502-317-0840. We're also online at retirementsolutionradio.com. There are obviously a lot of things that are involved with figuring out when we can retire at any point. But for a lot of people that you work with, as you said, they realize one more year doesn't make that much of a difference. How often do you find that people can actually retire sooner than they expected? And I know that's something that you guys work on with reallocation. They don't have to save any more money, but they still can end up spending more than they thought.
I'm going to say 7 out of 10 people. 7 out of 10 people don't realize when they come in, they always say the same things. I'm just trying to figure out, number one, are we okay? Could we potentially retire in 2 years?
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is I'm saying literally 7 out of 10 people, just off the top of my head, quick, stomach-based guess.
Yeah.
7 out of 10 people, we say, not only can you retire the way that you've told me you want to do it, you can retire tomorrow. You could have retired a couple years ago if you're so inclined, because the math works. Now, then we just want to verify. Do we have our numbers right? Do we truly know the dollars that have been coming in? And do we truly know the dollars that you've been spending? Because that's just simple math, right? Dollars in, dollars out.
Right.
Now, then we just want to factor in, What about healthcare? And I don't mean paying for it. I mean, like, what did your parents need? How long did they live? What's been their longevity? Do we have dementia in the family? What about Alzheimer's? Does that run in the family? Cancers? What type are they? Are they the time that unfortunately and we're gone? Or are there things that, consistently, it's a battle that we're ongoing dealing with for decades or even longer, because those things matter. Those matter, especially when we're doing the planning process. The age of spouses, if you're married filing jointly, matters a lot when it comes to having income for a surviving spouse. Mm-hmm. So those things matter. And all those things are the granular pieces, of what we go into. Inflationary concerns, right? Mm-hmm. So we're actually hearing the Fed, even though the administration, the president's like, I really need you to drop interest rates. They're too high. People can't get homes. It's messing everything up for my reelection of our Congress people in the midterm. Mm-hmm. But here's the problem. Warsh, when we knew about this guy, he's a bit of a hawk. They're basically saying, whoa, pump the brakes, Mr. President. We may need to be increasing interest rates. Whoa. Will that potentially put the markets in a tizzy? We don't know. But all these things are happening right now. But all those things factor in. Can you retire? Should you retire? Does it make sense? And what is too early? What is too late? And where's the sweet spot? But most people, they can retire a lot earlier than they think. The question is, would they be happy, right? Okay. Or do they actually get more enjoyment and more fulfillment from their job than they've let on? And some people do, right? Small business owners are notorious for just keeping on working until they can't, or it becomes insolvent, or there's no one to leave it to and they can't find someone else to buy it. Small business owners are the easiest people to fix because typically there's 3 or 4 major things we have to do with them to get them restructured. It doesn't take as long as you think, 18 to 24 months. And believe it or not, you can actually turn your life's work into potentially a sellable asset. But it takes planning. It does not happen overnight. And most people never get to that. They're not willing to commit the 18 to 24 months to maybe get millions of dollars in the back end. Instead, they give it to a kid or they give it to a family member. And unfortunately, this doesn't run the same way. They don't get paid back the same way they should. Right. But guys, this is why we're on the show. It's just talk about planning. Think about it. We almost never talk about products on the show. It's about plan. Get the plan right. And the plan will dictate all of our opportunities. And some of them are incredible, but you have to know, where are you starting? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And then what are the processes that we need to put in place to hit those goals? Most people, it's because they just haven't seen and been aware before of the math. And that makes it unscary, right? As long as we get the math right, nothing's really scary. Then it's just like, hey, what's a better decision? To wait 3 more months, not a year, 3 more months, so I can get that one last bonus and then go out? And should I cash in that holiday pay, or should I just go ahead and do my 3 weeks as my way out of the thing? I'll put in my notice, take my 3 weeks on paid family time or paid time off, and then actually come back to only clear out my desk. Right? There's all kinds of things that I've seen people do because of the way that their companies work. I'm like, that's a great idea. I'm going to use that for the next person that comes in and says that. So that's the cool thing about working with an advisor too, that's seen thousands of people's retirements. There's things I learn, no joke, every month, Heather. Every month for someone like, hey, here's what my plan allows me to do. I'm like, you're kidding. I wonder how many other plans allow that. Mm-hmm. We look into it. I'm like, hey, did you know that you can do a backdoor Roth in your current 401k and maybe put $60,000 in a tax-free account? No one knows. So that's that point. Yeah. Get that right conversation started so you can truly find out mathematically, could you retire tomorrow if you wanted to? Would it make you happier? And then figure out the processes and procedures we need to do to get you in the right spot.
Let's begin the conversation helping you understand about your plan, your money, your future. It's retirementsolutionshow.com, or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.